Steelers fans, hold on to your terrible towels because what I'm about to tell you could reshape Pittsburgh's entire future. We're talking about two massive opportunities that could define this franchise for years to come. And if you're not subscribed right now, you're going to miss every single update as this story develops. Smash that subscribe button because this is getting wild and we're covering every angle of Steelers news every single day. All right, let's get into this because there's so much happening behind the scenes right now that Steelers Nation needs to understand. We're standing at a crossroads moment. On one side, you've got Rasul Douglas, a battle-tested cornerback who could walk into Pittsburgh's secondary tomorrow and make an immediate impact. On the other side, there's Brenden Sorsby, a quarterback prospect with legitimate first-round talent who's about to enter the NFL supplemental draft, and the whispers around the league are getting louder by the day. Now, before we go any further, let me make something crystal clear. Nothing is official yet. Rasul Douglas hasn't signed any contract with the Steelers. Brenden Sorsby hasn't been drafted by Pittsburgh. But here's why both of these names matter more than you might think, and why Omar Khan and the front office need to be paying very close attention to what's unfolding right now. Let's start with the quarterback situation because that's what's really getting people talking. Brenden Sorsby just applied for the NFL supplemental draft. For those who don't know how this works, the supplemental draft is basically a second chance for players who missed the regular draft for various reasons. Maybe they had eligibility issues. Maybe something came up after the draft deadline. In Sorsby's case, it's about a gambling situation from his college days that we'll get into in just a minute. But here's what's absolutely crucial to understand. This isn't just some random quarterback hoping to get a shot. Multiple NFL scouts and analysts who've broken down his film are saying that if Brenden Sorsby had been in this year's regular draft, he would have gone in the first round. Let me say that again. First round talent. Some are even saying he would have been the third quarterback selected, right behind the top two prospects. That's the kind of arm talent and athletic ability we're talking about here.
So what makes him special?
Well, according to people who've studied his tape extensively, Sorsby has this rare ability to change the trajectory and pace of his throws. That might sound like technical jargon, but what it really means is that he understands how to manipulate defenses with his arm. He's not just winging the ball downfield hoping his receiver comes down with it. He's reading what the defense is giving him, adjusting the velocity, changing the arc, placing the ball exactly where it needs to be to complete the play. That's quarterback IQ combined with elite physical tools. Last season, Sorsby averaged over 9 air yards per attempt. That tells you he can push the ball down the field. He's not a check down Charlie. He's attacking defenses vertically. And on top of that, he rushed for 9 touchdowns. At 6'3", he's got the size you want, the mobility to extend plays, and the arm strength to make every throw on the field. When you package all of that together, you're looking at a prospect with serious franchise quarterback upside. But hold on, because here's where it gets complicated. The reason Sorsby is in the supplemental draft and not already on an NFL roster is because of a gambling violation during his time in college. Now, the NCAA investigated this thoroughly, and they determined there were no integrity of game violations. What does that mean? It means he wasn't throwing games or trying to manipulate outcomes. The situation involved him betting on his own team while he was back in his dorm room during road games. Still a violation of the rules, absolutely, but context matters here. The NFL is still deciding how they'll handle this. Commissioner Roger Goodell hasn't officially announced that there will even be a supplemental draft this year, though everyone expects that announcement to come soon. Once it does, teams will get a memo explaining the rules and the timeline, which is expected to happen sometime in late July. Sorsby is planning to hold a workout in the Dallas area on July 10th, giving teams a chance to see him throw in person, talk to him face-to-face, and get a feel for who he is as a person and a player.
Now here's the big question every team has to answer. Will the NFL suspend him? And if so, for how long?
The expectation around the league is that yes, there will probably be some kind of suspension, but here's the thing. No team is drafting Brenden Sorsby expecting him to start week 1. This is a developmental prospect. This is a long-term investment. So even if he has to sit out his rookie season, that doesn't necessarily kill his value. It just means whoever drafts him is treating this as a redshirt year, letting him learn the system, mature as a person, and get ready to compete down the road.
And that's exactly where the Steelers come into the picture. Pittsburgh is in this really interesting spot right now. They just brought in Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. Rodgers gives the Steelers a legitimate chance to compete for a Super Bowl right now. But everybody with a brain knows this isn't a 10-year plan. Rodgers is in the twilight of his career. He's giving Pittsburgh a window, maybe 2 or 3 years if everything goes perfectly, but eventually the Steelers are going to need to find the next guy. That's the reality of the NFL. You can never stop thinking about the quarterback position. Even when you have a great one, you have to be planning for what comes next. And right now, the Steelers have Drew Aller and Will Howard behind Rodgers on the depth chart. Both are young, both are developing, but neither one is a sure thing. So the question becomes, should Omar Khan take a swing at Brenden Sorsby in the supplemental draft? Here's what makes this fascinating. The supplemental draft works differently than the regular draft. Teams submit bids for players, and if your bid wins, you get the player, but you lose that pick in next year's draft. So if the Steelers bid a second-round pick and win Sorsby, they wouldn't have a second-round pick in the 2027 draft. That makes this a high-stakes decision. You're not just taking a flyer on a guy, you're trading future draft capital for a player with major question marks. But let's flip that around. What if Sorsby really is as talented as the evaluators are saying? What if he sits out this year, learns behind Rodgers, cleans up the off-field stuff, and emerges as a legitimate starting quarterback? Then you're talking about potentially landing a franchise quarterback for the price of a second or third round pick. That's a home run. That's the kind of move that can change a franchise's trajectory for the next decade. Some analysts are saying that Sorsby has a higher ceiling than some of the quarterbacks taken in this year's draft. They're specifically mentioning guys like Carson Beck, who went to Arizona, and Cade Klubnik, who the Jets selected. The argument is that while those guys might have higher floors, meaning they're more pro-ready right now, Sorsby has more pure talent. More arm ability, more athletic upside, more room to grow into an elite player if everything clicks. And that's the gamble. Do the Steelers believe in their ability to develop him? Do they trust their coaching staff to help him mature? Do they think the off-field concerns can be managed? Because if the answer to those questions is yes, then Brenden Sorsby becomes one of the most intriguing prospects available this offseason, and Pittsburgh should absolutely be in the mix. Now let's talk about the other side of this equation, because while Sorsby is about the future, Rasul Douglas is about right now. Douglas is a veteran cornerback who's played for multiple teams, including the Packers and the Cardinals. He's not a superstar, but he's exactly the kind of player that winning teams add when they're trying to solidify a unit. He brings experience, he brings toughness, he brings ball skills, and most importantly, he brings stability to a secondary. Why does that matter for Pittsburgh? Because the Steelers are built to win now. They've got one of the best defenses in football when healthy. TJ Watt is still one of the most dominant edge rushers in the league. Alex Highsmith is a menace off the edge. Nick Herbig showed flashes of being a future star. The defensive line can control games. But all of that pressure means nothing if the secondary can't hold up on the back end. That's where a guy like Rasul Douglas becomes valuable. He's not going to be the number one corner. He's not going to shut down Jamar Chase or Tyreek Hill by himself, but he can be a reliable second or third option. He can handle matchups against number 2 receivers. He can play smart, communicate pre-snap, help the younger guys understand what they're seeing, and most importantly, he can capitalize when the pass rush forces a quarterback into a bad decision. Think about how the Steelers' defense works at its best. Watt and Highsmith are collapsing the pocket. The quarterback feels the heat, steps up, tries to get rid of the ball quickly, and he's forced into a tight window. That's when you need a defensive back who can read the play, jump the route, and turn pressure into a turnover. That's what separates good defenses from great ones. Pressure is fantastic, but turnovers win games. Rasul Douglas has made a career out of being in the right place at the right time. He's got good instincts, he's got good hands for a defensive back, and he's been in big games. He knows what it takes to play in January. For a Steelers team that's trying to navigate the absolute gauntlet that is the AFC, that kind of veteran presence matters. Because let's be real for a second, the AFC is absolutely stacked right now. Kansas City is still the team to beat until someone actually beats them in the playoffs. Buffalo is loaded. Baltimore has Lamar Jackson and one of the most explosive offenses in football. Cincinnati has Joe Burrow and a receiving core that can light you up for 40 points any given Sunday. The Chargers are building something special. The Texans are on the rise. And every single one of those teams is looking for any edge they can find. So if you're the Steelers, you can't afford to have weak spots. You can't afford to have a secondary that gets exploited when it matters most. You can't afford to lose a playoff game because a young corner got picked on in crunch time. That's why adding a veteran like Rasul Douglas makes sense, even if it's not a flashy move. It's about depth. It's about competition. It's about having options when injuries happen or matchups get tough. And here's the beauty of where Pittsburgh is right now. They can do both. They can add a veteran like Douglas to help them win now, and they can still take a swing on a high upside prospect like Sorsby for the future. Those moves aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, the best front offices in the NFL are the ones that manage both timelines at the same time. You don't ignore tomorrow just because you're trying to win today. And you don't sacrifice today just because you're worried about tomorrow. Omar Khan has shown, since taking over as general manager, that he's willing to be aggressive. He's not afraid to make moves. He's not sitting around waiting for opportunities to fall into his lap. He's creating them. And that's exactly the kind of mindset you need in today's NFL. Because if you hesitate, if you wait too long, if you second guess yourself, someone else is going to jump in and take what could have been yours. So what should Steelers Nation want to happen here? Let's break it down. If Rasul Douglas is available at a reasonable price, absolutely bring him in. Let him compete in training camp. Let him push the younger guys. Let him show what he can do. If he wins a role, great. If someone else beats him out, even better, because that means your depth just got stronger. There's no downside to adding competition as long as you're not overpaying. As for Brenden Sorsby, this is where it gets really interesting. The Steelers need to do their homework. They need to interview him. They need to talk to people who know him. They need to understand what happened with the gambling situation and whether he's learned from it. They need to evaluate whether he fits the culture they're trying to build. And if all of that checks out, if they believe in the talent and they believe in the person, then yeah, absolutely consider using a second or third round pick in the supplemental draft. Because here's the reality. Finding a franchise quarterback is the hardest thing to do in the NFL. Teams spend decades searching. They waste first round picks on guys who flame out. They trade multiple picks to move up in the draft and still end up missing. So when a player with first round talent becomes available for the price of a second or third round pick, even with the baggage, you have to at least consider it. Now, does that mean Sorsby is a guarantee? Absolutely not. There's risk here, real risk, but there's also real reward. And the Steelers are in a unique position where they can take that risk without it impacting their immediate future. Rodgers is the starter. Aller and Howard are already in the building. Adding Sorsby doesn't create a quarterback controversy. It just adds another talented arm to the room and lets the best player win. What's really driving the conversation around the league is that nobody expected this opportunity. The supplemental draft doesn't happen every year, and when it does, it's usually not for a quarterback with this kind of talent. So teams that are picking late in the draft, teams that are contenders, teams like Detroit, Philadelphia, and yes, Pittsburgh, they're looking at this and thinking, wait, we might be able to land a future franchise quarterback without giving up a top pick in next year's draft? That's worth exploring. And the beauty of the supplemental draft is that you control your own destiny. You decide what you're willing to bid. If you think Sorsby is worth a second round pick, you bid that. If you only want to go as high as a fourth, you bid that. And if someone outbids you, then you walk away without losing anything. It's a calculated gamble, and for a team like the Steelers that prides itself on making smart decisions, this is exactly the kind of situation where you trust your evaluation and make the move if you believe in the player. Fan reaction to all of this has been all over the map, and honestly, that's what makes it so fun to talk about. Some Steelers fans are saying, why would we take a risk on a guy with off-field issues when we just brought in Aaron Rodgers? Let's focus on winning now. Other fans are saying, this is exactly the kind of move we should make. If we believe in the talent, we can't let other teams steal a potential franchise quarterback just because we were too cautious. And both sides have a point. That's what makes this such a compelling debate. There's no obvious right answer.
It depends on how much faith you have in the player, how much faith you have in the organization's ability to develop him, and how much you're willing to risk for the chance at landing something special. What we do know is that the clock is ticking. The supplemental draft is coming soon. Rasul Douglas isn't going to wait around forever. Decisions have to be made. And in the AFC, where every team is loaded and every advantage matters, the Steelers can't afford to sleep on opportunities. So Steelers Nation, this is where I need to hear from you. Are you Team Rasul Douglas, bringing in a veteran to shore up the secondary and help this team make a run right now? Or are you Team Brenden Sorsby, taking a swing at a high-ceiling quarterback who could be the face of this franchise after Aaron Rodgers hangs it up? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this is the kind of debate that defines an offseason. And remember, if Omar Khan plays this right, the Steelers don't have to choose just one. They can add a veteran to help win now and still invest in the future. That's how you build a sustained winner. That's how you stay competitive year after year. You don't just think about this season. You think about the next 5, 10, 15 years. And right now, Pittsburgh has a chance to do exactly that. Stay locked in, Steelers Nation, because this story is just getting started.